Welcome to the BeDadly podcast, where we discuss all things Dadly, from being an entrepreneur while caring for toddlers to raising screenagers and talking the birds and the bees. We're here to help you traverse the vast and dynamic landscape of fatherhood. Enjoy practical advice, lots of puns, and even a few heart-touching moments.
And the dad jokes are pretty good too.
And now your host, Brandon Jones.
And just like that, we are back, folks. Welcome back to the BeDadly Show. I am Brandon Jones, your host for the BeDadly podcast. And today I'm blessed to have Matt Sinkovitz on with us. Matt, I want to tell you a little bit about Matt. Matt has been a practitioner and teacher of personal and spiritual development for over a decade. An avid student of mindfulness and meditation, Matt graduated from the Blue Mountain School of Mindfulness Arts Seminary program in 2018 with a master's in Buddhist ministry and was ordained Osho, which is priest, in May of 2019. In this capacity, he has actually served the past several years as an interfaith minister in prisons and hospitals. Matt began his studies in Buddhism and thought as a young adult, seeking resolution to his own personal life dilemmas. Overcoming his 20 plus years of compulsive relationship with porn, Matt was inspired to share his journey and support other men in the path to liberation through his online Facebook community, Porn to Purpose. Matt currently runs a 90-day liberation boot camp as well as a 7-day porn abstinence challenge. And Matt is passionate about the community's commitment to support committed fathers and husbands in ending their toxic relationship with porn so they can reignite the passion in their relationships and be better role models to their children. That's a little bit about Matt. Matt, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm excited to get into this with you.
Yeah, Brandon, thanks so much for having me, brother. I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. Porn is such a hot topic. It's definitely taken us by storm with, all the interfaces that we have access to today. And I'm really interested, to hear a little bit more about the porn side of things. But before we get there, Buddhist minister, like an Osho, tell me how that happened. How did you decide to just wake up and become a Buddhist priest, if you will?
Yeah, brother. Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. And I found my path through my own journey of my own struggles, my own pain, my own suffering, like so many of us do. And, I grew up in the Christian church, Pentecostal church, heavily involved in missions work as a kid, going on mission trips with my parents around the world, smuggled Bibles when I was a kid with my mom and a group of missionaries. My mom still runs a large Christian prison ministry in the state of Pennsylvania. And so I grew up visiting inmates and kind of just doing faith-centered missions work. And so I kind of got a taste for it early on. And so I was heavily involved in a Christian church, like I said, Pentecostal background, people praying in tongues and being slain in the spirit, and kind of doing that whole kind of Baptist feel of Christianity. And I found myself heavily involved in youth group, like in high school. But then towards like the end of high school, late teens, early 20s, I kind of began to fall away from Christianity and just began asking my own questions. I think that's probably more accurate. Just began asking my own questions and wasn't really satisfied, I guess, with some of the answers I had been given in my traditional upbringing, and just needed to go out and kind of seek some of these things out for myself. And I also found myself like mid 20s in a really dark place, really depressed, points of suicide, suicidal thinking, and just really unhappy with myself and really unhappy with life. And it was around that time I kind of had this awakening, and I was working at this hotel away from where I grew up. I was in the hotel industry at that time, and I kind of had this moment of awakening, and I kind of woke up to the idea that, if I'm having all these obsessive thoughts and I'm feeling like a victim to my mind, into my thinking, into my way of being, well, then since I'm aware of that, maybe I can change it somehow. So I went out to the bookstore that night and began digging in. I just went to the bookstore looking for books on mindfulness and meditation and Buddhism and stuff like that. And that was really the start of my path, man. I began meditating, essentially, Brandon, and ended up leaving that job and kind of returning back closer to my hometown and got hooked up with a Buddhist Sangha for weekly meditation and really dug into it, and ended up studying with my teacher of that organization, Blue Mountain, as you mentioned there in my intro, and ended up going on to the seminary program there. And kind of from there began just digging back into my roots, if you will, and beginning to take opportunities to go and serve in prisons. I was a prison chaplain, a volunteer prison chaplain here in our local county prison, leading men in meditation and kind of doing one-on-one spiritual guidance there. And that ultimately led me on to interfaith hospital work. I did a internship, and I also ended up doing a 1-year, residency as a chaplain there. So kind of came back to ministry kind of from an interfaith perspective. I still very much honor and appreciate my Christian roots, my Christian, heritage. But it's kind of now like a blend, a blend of my work.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know, like, from your perspective, having this Christian background and adopting this Buddhist philosophy, do you see that your position with Buddhism, for example, you said Osho, and it's the word priest, and is it a religion? Like, I mean, Buddhism is a religion, right? And it also seems to me it's also a philosophy. And that's really how I look at it, Brandon. For me, I don't pray to Buddha. Right. You're not worshiping Buddha or using the Buddhist statue as some idol.
No, not at all.
It's more like just there's this great teacher that I've learned some of his principles, some of his thinking that was shared. And because that thinking is really, really, really pure and good, it's helped me. Is that kind of your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I found it to be a path of peace. You know what I mean? A path of love, a path of compassion. So, I mean, I'm still very much a student of the teachings of Christ as well. I feel like there's universal truth in all of it. Yeah, I found in the Buddhist path just a path of peace, something that really spoke to me, and I really use it more as a way of life and as a philosophy, as you mentioned there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I remember one time I signed up for a dating app, which is the only time I ever did it, but it had asked what religion. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting for me, mainly because I've dabbled in learning so many different religions. I really enjoy theology in general. And I found myself putting on there Christian Buddhist. And it was kind of what was interesting. I remember somebody writing me, how can you be a Christian and a Buddhist? And I was like, well, I wouldn't say I'm a Buddhist and I don't keep little idols of Buddha around, although I do think we have one, but it's not we don't have it set up where I go and pray to Buddha. Right. That's not it at all. In fact, all of it is I really, really, really resonate with some of the teachings, suffering is attachment, that kind of base idea that really makes so much sense to me, understanding being a little bit of an observer to our mind and actually being a witness as opposed to constantly feeling like we are our thoughts, which I found is not true. Our thoughts will run. They'll run like crazy. I remember listening to or reading Michael Singer in the Surrender Experiment. And there was a point at one of his books where he talked about the roommate in your head. And if you just notice that there's this voice that talks, and it argues with itself, and it wants to go from idea to idea to idea, the drunken monkey kind of thing. Those ideas, when I sat there and contemplated them, made so much sense. In fact, I witnessed those happening. And it was kind of well, if you're witnessing the thoughts running, who are you? Who are you if those thoughts run and you can witness them? Yeah. So very, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, they call Buddha one of like the great psychotherapist. It was really like the beginning of so many of our therapy and psychology roots, man. And that's really what I used it for. And that's really my application today. At the end of the day, man, some Christians and some traditions won't like this, but I think when we're all looking up praying, we're all praying to the same God, man. And that's the one I pray to. And I feel I have a very close relationship with, man. So that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah, I totally get that. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I just was curious about it because, I do know some people or some hardcore Christians are going to say like, hey, you can't, you're not mixing, etc. But I have this sense that God was in the works with Buddha, like God's works are through Buddha. So us learning the teachings of Buddha, we're also us learning the teachings of God.
Yeah, brother.
So, and some of us are more clear and can speak more eloquently than others. I think Buddha was probably one of those people.
Yeah.
In fact, it would probably be pretty easy to argue he was. So that's great. I do feel like I've got to share one quick little cute Buddha story for you guys. I went to Thailand and I have a friend who's a Buddhist. And I wanted to bring him back a gift because there are a lot of Buddha statues and little ornaments and things like that in Thailand because they pay so much tribute to Buddha. And we're at a temple and we're leaving the temple and there was a small shop. It was literally an outdoor market, basically. And there they had several Buddha statues of different sizes and shapes and wood and stone and jade and beautiful things and some that were just very simple, etc. And I wanted to buy one. So I grabbed one of them and I was like, this is perfect. Like my friend Seth is going to love this. And as I go to say how much for this Buddha, the man tells me I can't buy it. And I said, what? I said, they're not for sale? He goes, oh no, they're for sale. And I was like, okay, why can't I buy it? And he said, do you live in America? And I said, yes. And he says, I'm sorry, you can't buy it. And I was like, wow, I'm really like, I had no idea. What's the reason? And the guy said, well, actually here in Thailand, there's a law against selling you a Buddha.
Wow.
And I was like, there's a law. And he says, yeah, if they're over a certain size, they're not allowed to leave Thailand to America or whatever. And we don't sell to Americans.
Very interesting.
So I was very shocked by this. And I said, well, I accept that that's a rule or whatever, but do you mind if I understand why? Why would that be a law or why would that happen? And he said, because, and in what little English he knew, he said, because in America, they do not respect the Buddha. They will use them as doorstops, even in a bathroom. And so he felt like there was this rule, and maybe this is, this is what he's telling me. There's a rule, can't sell them, and it's because the lack of respect for Buddha statues. Mm. And I got puzzled. Because I just spent an hour meditating with Buddha. And one of the things I was meditating on was attachment and thinking and focusing on attachment. And I said, it's so interesting. I said, isn't it true that one of the foundational principles of Buddhism is that all suffering is from attachment, and that Buddha himself taught that you have to release your attachments? And the guy looks at me and goes, oh, the Buddha. And I said, well, it just seems funny to me because it seems like Buddha wouldn't be attached to where he sat. Mm-hmm. In fact, Buddha might like the view in the bathroom floor. Like, wow, check this out. Like he may find some way of enjoying that. Mandela found peace in prison. Gandhi found peace. Why Buddha? Why would the Buddha not find peace? And the man goes, you taught me a very important lesson today. And then he grabs a Buddha right like the one I grabbed. And he says, I will sell it to you. And he sold me the Buddha because I gave him a lesson.
Wow, very cool.
It was awesome. And I got to bring that home and tell that story to my friend. And it was so cool that it actually moved the energy.
Cool, man. So, cool teaching.
Cool. Yeah. So cool. So, all right. So you got into Buddhism and then when did you get into the realization that, hey, porn's a problem for me?
Yeah. Okay. So, there's kind of like a couple tracks to my story. Uh, I got into porn like probably like most kids, most boys, like around probably early teens somewhere. I was trying to like pin down exactly when that happened. I don't know exactly what my age was. I remember some of my first instances or experiences with porn, but somewhere early teens. And porn was something that was very innocent for me for much of my life. It wasn't like a big issue. And also, I feel like I'm one of the last generations. I'm 39 years old today as of the date of this recording. And I feel like I'm kind of one of the last generations that grew up for a significant part of my life without the computer in the home. Like I didn't have a computer in our house until like high school, like the end of high school. So porn really, maybe if you could get your hands on a Playboy magazine or a friend's videotape or, DVD, you were lucky, but it wasn't like as prevalent as it was today,
Mm-hmm.
So it was
You're the
very casual for
magazine.
much of my life.
You're the magazines under the bed era.
Exactly.
Under the mattress.
Yeah. If you were lucky, so it didn't become really a problem for me, or it didn't become a more regular part of my life until late teens, early 20s, when I first, when I kind of got my own place and high speed was becoming a thing, and I had like a good computer and could access just volumes of porn, like are available out there today and at rapid speeds. So I would say, porn kind of became a part of my life more regularly, like in my 20s, up through my 20s, then with the advent of these phones, up into my 30s. So like, when did it become a problem? Probably from day one, but I began to notice that it was like impacting my life probably in my 20s. I began to notice like impacts in my relationships, or I began noticing I was just as content to stay home and watch porn on a Friday night than I was to go out and be at the bar. I was like, this is cool. I'm good here, with my friends. So I began to kind of notice stuff like that. And I really began to notice it was an issue as I began to kind of feel this call and desire to go into coaching and personal development work and spiritual development work. And as I kind of began like moving in the direction of this ministry work on my Buddhist path and kind of studying in seminary, and then beginning to get the opportunity to go into prisons and hospitals and stuff like that, that's when it really became like obvious to me that it wasn't a healthy part of my life, and it was something I wanted to resolve and uproot from my life permanently.
So what I want to try to isolate this thought. I found that some of these thoughts or beliefs are so powerful. They are the kind of thing that you need, like an anchoring belief, an anchoring thought that helps you make a turn like this. Mm-hmm. What was that belief for you? Like, what was the belief that, for example, you said it's unhealthy, but what was it like? What was like, if you could just isolate that, what was that belief and what was driving it? Like, for example, I can't stand here in integrity as a priest or as a minister or as this person and be doing this in the background.
That's exactly right.
What was it?
I think it was most glaringly obvious, Brandon, whenever I began going into prisons. I just had an interview with a gentleman last night. We kind of got into this conversation, but man, going into a prison, I was right in there, man. I was walking past men in cells, and I was leading groups of men. And porn for me has a tendency to kind of create fear within me, kind of weaken me. It's like it creates like a social awkwardness or anxiety. Oftentimes you can't look people in the eyes. And I just knew that it was out of integrity or out of alignment for me spiritually. I knew it wasn't healthy. So for me, I could not continue to go in and do this work and look people in the eyes honestly and know that there was this kind of shadow element of my life or this skeleton in my closet, so to speak. Not only did I feel like that was out of integrity for me, but also I was like, there's no way I can like watch porn tonight and try and go to that prison tomorrow. Like they're going to sniff me out. Like I got to go in there strong. I got to go in there clear. I got to go in there with integrity. So yeah, it's really interesting. And, our program and our process, actually, the the same way I did, invites men into leadership in their own lives, because leadership, I think, calls us into higher degrees of integrity. So as I moved into leadership, it just became more and more obvious that the two weren't gonna jive together. I couldn't do it in good conscience. And so I think that prison era for me was really obvious. And I was like, yeah, these two things don't go together. I got to go in here strong and in good integrity with myself.
That's great. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, how bad is porn? I mean, like, tell me about it. What are some of the negative consequences? Maybe some that we don't even recognize in your experience. Like, what changed for you? I could say, like,
yeah. So, I really try and take a balanced approach to this and recognize that for some people, porn's not an issue. Some people have maybe figured out a way to kind of do it consciously or incorporate into their lives in a way that's not unhealthy. So I always want to kind of like start by recognizing that and acknowledging that. It's just like some people can have a couple drinks and it's not a problem. Some people have a couple drinks and it turns into chaos in their lives. And porn kind of had that effect for me. It created chaos. It was very destructive for me, very upsetting. So I want to say that first. And so the problem with porn that I saw in my life, and the problem with porn that I see in a lot of men's lives that I have the honor of working with, it affects everything, man. It affects self-confidence, self-esteem. It affects energy levels, focus, productivity. It impacts our relationships in many ways. It impacts us sexually. I think it has an adverse effect on mental health. All these things tied together, I think it affects business. I think it affects money. And one of the biggest things for me, it affects us stepping into leadership, which we've kind of already spoken to here today. And one of the biggest things for me is I felt porn was creating a spiritual ceiling of sorts for me. I felt like it was inhibiting my spiritual growth, and it was inhibiting my momentum in life, and it was inhibiting me stepping in to the man I felt called to be and the work that I felt called to be doing. Maybe because it sabotaged my momentum, maybe because it created feelings of unworthiness, guilt, shame, maybe because I knew it didn't have a place in my life in a leadership capacity. So, I mean, there's just a start for you, man. To me, I think it adversely affected like every key area of my life.
Gosh. So that's huge. I mean, I kind of want to I want to sit with this, and I also want to reframe it. So like, think about this, guys, for a second. If porn is impacting every important area of your life, like, sit with that for a second. Porn is impacting every important area of your life. That's huge, man. In other words, you could say, hey, what if I had this thing that I could help you do, that it could actually improve your self-confidence? You're going to have better self-esteem. You're going to feel better about who you are. And as a result, you're going to be a better leader. You're going to build better businesses. You're going to be better at having integrity with yourself, your values, your spiritual development. It's going to improve your productivity. It's going to improve your focus. It's a very simple thing you can do. It's going to impact all of these areas of your life. Would you like to learn what it is?
Yeah, man, brother.
I would be like, sign me up. I got to know what that is.
I found for me, Brandon, it was like the linchpin that was affecting everything else, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
That big of leverage.
For myself, yeah, absolutely. And again, I think you put it well there. Some guys might not see it yet. I think, life is like a journey of awakening, man. And sometimes we don't see certain things. We have to kind of have our own experiences, our own realizations, our own awakening to the impacts that it's having. But yeah, man, I found that it affected everything. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to think here for a second on the behalf of the man who's sitting there going, dude, come on. If I wank it, it's no big deal. Like we're supposed to masturbate. Well, that's true. We're not talking about that. We're talking about pornography. Okay, fine. Okay, so if I watch a little video, is that really going to disrupt my day? Is that really going to, impact me that much? Right? Like there's some of us, right, that would be thinking that, because it's hard to see the immediate impact of something like porn.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but my question for the person who feels that way, because I kind of feel, I get it. I would get where you're coming from. My question would be, have you tried not doing it? Because while you might think what the impacts are, you really, if you haven't even experimented with it for a long enough time to really see what the results might be, do you really know whether it's impacting you or not? Because I think you have to be willing to at least give it a shot. Like you got to at least say, hey, I'm going to go for this challenge. I'm going to go for this, whatever it is, 7 days, 30 days, whatever it is. I want to see. I'm curious. These guys said this could improve my self-confidence, my self-esteem, my productivity, my focus, my business, my leadership, my integrity, my spiritual development, my relationships. These are important things. I'm committed to these things. I want these things. Time is ticking by. These things are important to me. If all that's lined up and these guys are saying this can do it, isn't it worth giving it a shot? I mean, you got to at least give it a shot. I don't know, man. You got me thinking about it.
Hey, brother, you know what? I liken it to, I think you made a great point there. Yeah, if it's not a problem, then see if you can stop for 7 days. We do a 7-day porn abstinence accountability challenge in our community to support guys in just that. And we do some training around it. So if it's no big deal, then see if you can stop for a week or 2 weeks and see how it goes.
Ooh, I like that. That's yeah. I like that. Hey, okay, fine. All right. Yeah. It's no big deal to you. No. You got this. You got it. Just go 7 days, bro. Exactly. Just call them out. Just show us 7 days, because if you have a problem with 7 days, you have to admit, you have to start to use a word. And I don't like this word. You put this word on me, I'm going to change something. I don't like this word. Addict. Mm-hmm. If you can't go 7 days, you got to know you're an addict. And then you have to reconcile that word with you. Like if I put a bunch of stamps and labels all over you, hey, addict is one of them. Do you like that? Right. I wouldn't. I don't want to be an addict. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that challenge.
I'd love to also add, porn is one of those things. I think, I assume if you're a man that's tuning into this podcast, whoever may be listening, that you're a conscious man, a man who desires better for himself, maybe aligns with this idea or resonates with this idea of integrity, So if you suspect, what I would offer you is, I found that porn is one of those things, like one of those linchpins, like you don't really realize the adverse effect it's having until you give it a shot. I like to liken it to drinking water. Like I didn't realize how dehydrated I was before until I started drinking a gallon a day. Yeah. I used to smoke cigarettes. I did not realize how much cigarettes, for like a decade, I did not realize how much cigarettes were dragging me down, making me foggy, robbing me of my energy, stinking, all this stuff until I gave it a break. And now when I smoke it, I'm like, ugh, because you have to have that contrast to be able to see it. So if you are a man that's interested in bettering himself, and this is a regular part of your routine, then consider, that there may be something there.
100%. I resonate with so much that I used to smoke. Now, I've had a few times, I don't know, a couple, maybe 2 New Year's Eves ago, where I had a couple glasses of champagne, maybe more than a few. And then I was like, oh yeah, a cigarette looks good. I miss an old cigarette. And then I was like, oh God, No.
Yeah.
Whoa, wow. You guys are still smoking these. I can't believe it.
Right.
Like that is just awful. Tastes awful, smells awful, headache, terrible. But I smoked a pack a day without even blinking. If I was going out on a weekend, I'd buy 2 just in case I didn't run out. I wouldn't run out. So it takes you stepping away long enough to really notice. Like you have to notice. And so like you're saying, if you're someone who's committed to improving your life in many different domains, but you're committed to you're the learner. I want to learn more. I want to improve myself. I want to put thoughts into action and see the kind of results they have. I want to have little science experiments with my life and see how I can improve it. If you're that person, this may be one of those things. And one of the things I tell people all the time as a coach, and this is huge, guys, this is like Jedi mind stuff here. What you stop has a bigger impact than what you start. You might be one of those starters. And I used to be this. I'm going to start journaling. I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to start reading a book a month. or a week, maybe. So, who knows how ambitious you are, but I'm going to start, exercising. I'm going to start walking. I'm going to start drinking a gallon of water a day. I'm going to start. And you've probably heard me talk about this if you've listened to my show, but I'm telling you, this is super important. I want to underscore it again. It's not about starting. You have things right now that are draining your energy, reducing your focus, and reducing the amount of output you're capable of doing. And it's not because you haven't started something. It's because you continue to perpetuate things that are not serving you. Mm-hmm. So when you stop something that you do on a daily or weekly basis, something that's in the pattern, it's in the hypnotic rhythm of your life. When you stop it, you instantly gain resources. That's what's great about stopping. You don't have to wait for resources. For example, if I want to build an asset in my business, I've got to build it, market it, sell it, build a funnel, do all this stuff. A lot to do. But I could recoup resources by stopping something I'm doing in my business that doesn't work for me. I just got rid of lead quizzes, went over to Typeform. Guess what? It saved me $50. Why? Because that area of my business was not working. All I needed was a quiz. I stopped using that one, and I instantly got that back to my bottom line. You recoup resources, if that's time, energy, money, etc. And then come all the other benefits that you didn't even know were lurking in the background. They emerge out of this space that you created for yourself. So yeah, I'm going to encourage you, try it, give it a shot. Let's do the 7-day challenge together. All right, let's keep moving, man. I'm loving this.
Me too,
so, all right. So what are the common, we talked about kind of the negative common and impacts and stuff, but I want to ask you this question. What about relationships? How does this impact? Because a lot of these guys are dads, they're fathers. How's this impacting their relationship? And or even if they're a single dad, their potential relationship. Man,
I think this is a huge one. This might be one of the most relevant pieces of this, conversation. So many guys operate with porn as a regular part of their life, and they don't see the impact that it's having in these key areas, specifically in the relationship. Yeah, so a lot of guys use the excuse, hey, you know what? I use it so I don't have to constantly be nagging my partner. You know what I mean? Right. Or my wife does not have the same libido I do.
Right.
And
right.
so I use it, guys. I hear it every day. So I use porn, but I think what a lot of guys are missing is that because they're unaware of the adverse negative impacts of porn in their life. I think oftentimes that story is like cart before the horse. Right. I would submit that it's actually your use of porn, your regular consumption of porn, that's probably affecting and negatively impacting your intimacy within your relationship, your ability to connect with your wife, your emotional maturity, your ability to really connect and have presence within the relationship. A lot of men confuse sex and intimacy. They're not the same thing. And I think eliminating porn really allows us to mature from boys to men in many ways. A lot of us if we've never, a lot of us are still operating like that 13-year-old boy that first
100%.
picked up that Penthouse magazine in terms of our sex and how we relate to women and how we view women. And so there's so much available to us. And I'll just say, in my own experience, it created a sexual kind of awkwardness. For me, it kind of messed up my sexual energy. I didn't really feel as interested in like connecting or being intimate with my partner. I was in a relationship with a really beautiful woman at kind of maybe like my height of my porn use. So not just beautiful, but a wonderful woman. And I would notice like I would kind of withdraw sexually, or I would use porn and masturbate earlier in the day. And then in the evening, I would be distant, kind of disconnected. I really wasn't interested in being intimate. It also created a huge degree of secrecy and hiding. It's like a huge aspect of our lives that we have to kind of keep secret and we hide. And that creates shame and all this stuff, man. So yeah, huge relationship, huge impacts there. And I also just want to say, because you mentioned it's a really important piece. Yeah, maybe you're justifying porn use because you're not in a relationship. You're like, well, I'm not getting any right now. It works for me. And I would say, that is very likely inhibiting you from attracting that right partner into your life. It's probably affecting self-confidence, self-esteem, self-image issues. There's stuff kind of going on below the surface that we can't always see. And it's very likely having an impact there as well, I would say, Brandon.
Yeah, that's so interesting too. Like thinking about how the cart before the horse thing, like this could be the reason that you guys aren't having the kind of fire that you want in your sexual relationship. Mm-hmm. You wish she had a different vibe. You wish she was more into it. You wish she'd be the freaky girl you once maybe knew, whatever it may be. But now she's stressed, she's tired. And how hard are you working for it? I mean, you can go bliss out on the computer. I have a feeling you're probably not putting in as much work as you used to get her fired up.
Amen.
We used to like light candles everywhere, show up with like the music, we'd make sure she was comfortable, ask her if you could get anything. You'd take care of her. You'd get her comfortable. Well, now you're just kind of kicking her with your leg. Hey, you, do you want to do anything? No, I don't want to do anything. You're kicking with your toes. Right. So, wow. Yeah. So it may be that because it's so convenient for you, you have lacked in the effort of cultivating that fire with her. Yeah. Wow. Really good. And on the other side, right? Okay. You're single. Yes, you're single. Well, guess what? You can go bliss out on the computer. You had a date with the computer. Maybe you don't have as much motivation to go out there and put yourself out there.
And video games sounds good tonight,
Right, exactly. Do I want to go put myself out there at a chance of rejection or go say yes to that? Right? Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit harder. Now that's unhealthy for you. This one may lead to fulfillment. Right. Oh, we got some choices to make. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Let me ask you this question. I'm curious, what is something like, how does a person start? I mean, it seems obvious, right? Okay. Yeah. Just shut the computer. Don't touch it. But that can't be it. It can't be it. How do you start with the decision to quit? Like, how does that happen? Like, what would you say is the best way to get started?
Mm-hmm. Man, you know what? And porn is tricky, man. And I think this is kind of a complex, sophisticated subject to dig into, man. I think a couple things I would offer is it starts with a real commitment. Just like myself, I dealt with porn all of my life. I recognized in my 30s that here I am. I've told myself I want to quit many times. I told myself I was done many times. I was becoming more and more aware of the impacts it was having in my life, right? But I'm unable to quit, and I have not quit yet. So, and I've tried on my own 100 times, right? We've all said, I'm fine. I can do it on my own. So for me, it wasn't until I made a real decision and I put my money where my mouth was and I hired a coach, and I got into community, I got into accountability, I got support, and I got a path up the mountain, because today's world is full, like digital landscape is full of triggers everywhere you look, even if you're not
100%.
on a hardcore website, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, we begin to pay attention to the subtleties in our work. And yeah, it's like, maybe you're not on Pornhub, but you're really getting close and you're nibbling around the edges, as my coach put it, on Instagram, and it's going to lead. So like the digital landscape is full of landmines everywhere you look. So I think like we have to be like modern day ninjas around this stuff. We must become very vigilant and very skilled around navigating the digital landscape and learning, like, where am I going to place my attention? Scrolling mindlessly on Facebook or Instagram at midnight, like on your phone in bed, like you're asking for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to learn to operate our lives differently. So I don't want to go off too much on a tangent on your thing there, on your question, but I think the real thing, brother, is making a decision that's different than maybe all the ones you've attempted to make in the past. And that really makes a powerful commitment to yourself and a commitment to a process. And a financial commitment is a very powerful way to do that. And so I would say that commitment is crucial. And I would say another really big piece of this puzzle is the why. Like, what are you no longer willing to tolerate in your life? Getting super clear on that. And also getting super clear on what are you desiring instead. If you're tired of, this in your intimacy or relationships or sex life, what do you want instead? And getting super clear on that is a big piece of it. And I would also say third is community. Community, man, because porn is a very lonely thing. It's there's a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of shame around sexuality. Oftentimes in today's society, we don't talk about it. We deal with it by ourselves. Oftentimes porn gets into like weird world. It's like it gets more raw, more graphic, more violent, more taboo. And so we have a lot of shame around it, and we feel very alone and very isolated around it. So what community does is allows us to come into community with other men and speak about it and take that which has been in the darkness for so much of our lives and bring it to the light and begin to normalize it and begin to connect around it and begin to recognize I'm not so weird after all. And it really begins, I think that's a really pivotal moment in the journey, is when you get into communication, into community, and begin to open up. But I think the real piece, man, is that commitment piece I spoke of there.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, I'm going to summarize. I'm going to come back here with this because I think this is so important. So we have the decision piece. Mm-hmm. We have the why you're deciding, and we have the where you are going. Mm-hmm. I love this. These are great. These are such good pieces. Let's work with these for a second. First of all, why? If you haven't determined a big enough why, you can't make a big enough commitment to do this. We talked about confidence, self-esteem, productivity, focus, all these things. If these are things on the top of your list that you say are important to you, don't you owe it to yourself to do what you can to improve them? And if this is a small, maybe it's a big, but it's a sacrifice you can make. And it is a sacrifice you can make. And one of the things where I have to rewind one thing, so it just popped in my head. This is so new, you guys. None of our ancestors had this. No person in our species, if you go back in history, had access to this. Yes, they had brothels. Yes, there was nudity, etc. But no one had. You weren't just witnessing crazy porn. Yeah, out of the black box, out of that black mirror that we call a cell phone. It's questionable what that's about. It's questionable. So we don't even know, guys. We really don't know the impact that this really has on our minds, especially as animals who are literally designed to seek mates, to create family, to build, right? And create that resilience and that strength within ourselves. And that energy, that sexual energy, is part of it. It's a huge part of it. So, okay. So we have to focus on our why. And then you said we had to make this decision. Dacier, to cut off, to literally cut off, to decide is to cut off. It is to literally cut away the other option. Making porn a non-negotiable. Porn is, there's you 1.0, that's with porn. And then there's that moment, Dacier. Okay, we're going to cut off that you. That means the new you 2.0, it's not even there. You don't do this. That's not a part of who you are because of your commitment to your business, your leadership, your integrity, your family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the things we talked about. You're going to cut it off and become the you 2.0. Now that is the next piece. Who do you want to be? What is the climb? Where are you going? Look forward, right? We got to see ourselves as going somewhere and then know that our decisions are a part of getting there and climbing that mountain. And like you said, and this is one of the cool Jedi mind tricks. You want to do it quickly. You want to do it faster than you've ever done it before with more fortitude and strength and power and all those things. Join a community. Get a guide. Doesn't matter what you want to do. That's the key to every single one. You want to lose weight? Get with a community. Get a guide. You want to stop porn? This is the same thing. Get a community, get a guide. These are basic fundamentals for creating massive transformation in your life. So if this feels like something you're interested in, you might want to think about it. So, okay, let me ask you this question. What are your best tips for somebody that's trying to quit? Like, I'm going to try to quit. What are some of your tips to help me avoid those pitfalls? Help me make some traction here. What would you say are some of your best tips?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Man, I feel like we kind of almost just touched them,
Well, you make that commitment, but then there's going to be the landmines. Like you, for example, you touched on one very good one there. Mm-hmm. It's late at night. You're scrolling the internet and you're by yourself. Seems like a really risky place. So is one of your tips, avoid those risky moments? Is it do you navigate some of that? Do you plot that out? Do you notice ahead of time? What do you do?
Yep. I really believe, I kind of mentioned learning, and as you mentioned, learning to navigate the modern digital landscape. This is new. This is something we've never done before. There are undoubtedly more things than ever before vying for our attention, and sex sells, man, and it's everywhere. So I really believe in what I teach and preach to our guys is guys, this is not about just a hack or a tip. This is about learning to live our lives in a different way. This is about lifestyle. This is about recognizing that, yeah, man, it's there's so much to this. It's I have a greater likelihood to go to porn whenever I'm feeling triggered, when I'm feeling low energy, when I'm feeling tired, when I'm feeling emotional, right? And this black box, as you mentioned, is built to trigger us. So yeah, if I'm laying in bed at night and scrolling my phone and I'm feeling a little tired, my guard's down, it's been a long day, I'm scrolling a little bit, or maybe I'm on Instagram, I decided I'm not going to porn today, I'm going to Instagram. It's one thing leads to the next, and before you know it, you're well, I might as well, what the heck, and we're back at that old site again. So it's really learning to navigate our lives in a different way. So much of this is about lifestyle. I really think the number one thing, because everything you do outside of community is done in a vacuum. It's done in isolation. So I think the number one thing I could recommend to anybody, it doesn't have to mean you have to hire a coach necessarily, although I do think that is the ultimate, step and choice. But just get into a free community. If you can, come join us in the Porn to Purpose community. Get into community, because you're going to begin to see other men having this conversation. You're going to begin to build relationships. You're going to kind of begin to see some of these things that maybe you weren't seeing before. You're going to begin to release some of that guilt and some of that shame. And that's going to be, I think the staple in this journey for you is community, man. Because, if you don't have something like that in place, you might say, you know what, I'm not going to lay in bed on my phone anymore because it's trouble. We make that decision. We say that, we make that statement, but it happens anyway. All these things, they come back in. I'm deleting Instagram off my phone. A month later, it's back on the phone. You know what I mean? We really have to, I think that community is really the piece of the puzzle, or, that really helps us to begin to get traction in this journey. We might say, you know what, I am so clear on my why. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I'm tired of the shame and all the crap and this stuff. I'm tired of lying to my wife about it. And I want this instead. And we're really clear. But then after a month, that clarity begins to kind of diminish, but within community, we can kind of hold all these things together. It brings like a cohesion to the journey of sorts, You know what? And if I could give you a tip without joining community, I would say throw your phone out the window. I always tell our guys, if we could get rid of these phones, like seriously, if we could chuck these phones out into the woods, like 80% of our problems would be gone. Right. If we didn't have to sit in front of this computer every day, 80% of our problems would be gone. So I think, at one point in my journey, I got a flip phone. I got a flip phone because I didn't want to have the temptation in front of me.
My son's mother, Bethany, got a flip phone during her pregnancy to avoid by basically constantly being pulled into it and just draining her energy. So she got a flip phone, and all of a sudden she had way more energy. She was doing a lot more around the house, and she felt better because she wasn't being constantly pulled into it.
Exactly, man. So disconnecting from the crap, man, is huge. Get out into nature more. But again, the challenge is, without being in community, I was doing all this stuff as well, but I would always return back to my old habits and my old patterns because I wasn't learning a new way. There's a million free YouTube videos out there, audios and books. I downloaded, I'll give you an extreme example. I downloaded, there's a accountability software. There's this stuff called accountability software. You put it on your phone and on your computer, and it monitors your activity, and it blocks you from certain things, and you can have accountability partners. And if you visit certain sites, it notifies them, and it creates accountability in your life. Well, again, another point in my journey, I was so sure I was done. I was like, this is it. I've done it 100 times. This is it. I'm installing this accountability software on my computer, and I'm going to ask my mom. I'm going to go all the way in. I'm going to ask my mom and my pastor to be my accountability partners, and there's no way I will break that commitment. So I did it. I was vulnerable. I did the thing. I put it on there. It worked for maybe a couple of weeks or a month. After a while, for whatever reason, I found the excuse. I deleted the stuff off my phone, and I was right back into it because I didn't have any teeth in the commitment. I didn't have anyone showing me a new way. I didn't have any community, really, So that's why I think the number one thing really is community, because it begins to help you really find a new path and really begin to get traction in this journey, man. So many things done in isolation just don't hold, I found in this journey.
Yeah. I really liked something you said there where you said, it's not really about tips or hacks. It's about lifestyle. It's about defining the kind of life you want to live, and then living and walking that life, as opposed to trying to figure out a tip or a hack or something like that. I really love that frame. I think that's really critical. So I spent 10 years in coaching. We're going on 12 now, but over a decade of coaching, but a good portion of that was habit coaching. So I'm very familiar with triggers, right? I'm very familiar with cues, rewards, very familiar with how the mind plays a massive impact on our ability or ability not to do something or to do something, and our inability, for example, to stop our thinking, etc. And I want to share with you guys real quick something that I've used to stop habits. Now, I have stopped smoking. I have quit drinking. So I'm sober. I'm completely sober, which is amazing. It's been now 10 months. I've done this twice. I went a whole year before, and I never necessarily was an alcoholic, but it would just keep going on. I'd party one day, then I would party the next day, and then I would just keep going. And then I was just wearing myself out, just not being the kind of person I wanted to be. Decided to quit. And there's something that I've used in each time. I use a belief about the thing that's a big negative. For example, drinking cost me money and a whole nother like half of a day. Like I'm usually hungover for at least a half a day. Add that up. If I drink 2 or 3 nights a week, I've lost, basically 1.5 days a week. Then I've lost something like almost 6 days or whatever a month, right? So 70 days a year, whatever it would be. So I'm getting to the point where I'm losing 70 of these precious moments. I have a little kid. I have a teenager. These guys are going through these phases. I need to be there for them. I don't want to be absent. I want to be present. I don't want to be half drained. I want to be there. I don't want to be thinking about drinking. I don't want to be that to be the motivation for my fun. I want to be connecting. So I had these thoughts. I had to get to the negative. I had to see the negative. And here's why. When it comes to a negative habit, negatives are positive. It's like math. Double negatives equal a positive, right? When you are looking at a negative thing in your life, drinking, smoking, porn, right? Then the negatives of that thing will move you in a positive direction. So if we look at the opposite, for example, the positives of that thing will move you in a negative direction. For example, every positive I can come up with for drinking moves me backwards. Every positive I can come up with for why I should keep smoking, which most of them are not true, moves me backwards. And every positive you can think of for pornography is moving you backwards. If you want to progress, you've got to get clear on the negatives. Negatives move you forward when it comes to negative habits. You want to build a positive habit, well, you need positives, right? 2 positives will add. But if you want to get rid of a negative, we got to do double negative. So get clear on the negatives. What are the negatives? And then this goes to the Native American story. 2 wolves are fighting inside of you. You ever heard this, Matt?
Yep.
So the 2 wolves are fighting. Which one wins? Okay. You got a dark wolf. You got a light wolf. Both of them are fighting. It's an eternal battle. Okay. The dark wolf is the bad wolf. The light wolf is the good wolf. And they're just fighting. The little boy asked the leader of the tribe, the chief, who wins? And the chief says, the one you feed. If you want to win this internal battle inside of you, you need to feed your good wolf. And the way you do it, my personal experience is you actually reinforce the negatives to help you make the better decision. And then you identify the battlefield. What I mean by identify the battlefield is just like you said, Matt, it's late at night and you're scrolling. Guess what, my friend? The enemy is lurking. It's what those little isolated pockets that you're a high risk, that is the battlefield. You better prepare for war because your enemy would love nothing more than to take advantage of you. Now, how are you going to win that battle? This is how. You're going to use your shield of wisdom, which says, I know the battles that come. Shield of wisdom, sword of truth. My sword of truth is the belief that I use to defeat my enemy. For example, for me with drinking, I will not drink because I love my children, and being present for them and being the best me for them matters way more than drinking. That's my sword of truth. I can defeat my enemy every time with it. What I have to use is a shield of wisdom, because if I'm not careful and I didn't use my wisdom, then I might get caught up in a moment where I start to think to myself that it might be okay. Well, it's New Year's. Oh, it's my birthday. Oh, well, it's just one drink. I got to be careful. because that's the trickery that the enemy uses. So I got to use my shield and I got to use my sword. And when I penetrate my enemy with that sword of truth, I can defeat them every time. When I know they're coming, I'm more prepared. Identify your battlefields, pick your weapon, which is going to be the beliefs. And if it's a negative thing, I want you to use the negatives. The negatives are why you are stopping. Those are the reasons why you're stopping, to get rid of those out of your life and to clean up your garden, to de-weed the bed and get the garden nice and fertile and beautiful, and to remove those weeds that are preventing you from being the kind of person you want to be. And that's my best advice for you because of like I said, the habit coaching background. But there is no greater advice than what Matt said. Join a community. Literally, like, this is not just a plugin. He's not telling you just join his community, join a community. Obviously, he has one, so consider his. But at the end of the day, the reason is so that you can relate with other people. You get out of isolation. You will let yourself off the hook, guys. You're going to let yourself slip if you're not in a community. If you don't have any accountability, if you're not talking to people about this, you're going to get in the backgrounds and the shadows and go back to doing your thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brother, man, I feel like we could jam on so much stuff, man. I love the habit conversation. Like, what I always tell our guys is, 80% of this work is rooted in radical self-care, is about radical self-care rooted in radical self-love, man. And it's about being proactive on the front end of everything, recognizing, as you mentioned, like, okay, if I eat this junk food, if I have this beer, if I smoke this weed, my mental state is going to be diminished. If I stare at the screen all day, my mental state is going to be diminished. I'm going to be in a low vibe state, and I'm going to get myself into the weeds. If I don't exercise, if I don't meditate, if I don't take great care of myself, like, we've got to be constantly vigilant about our energetic levels and our emotional levels, and always mindful of where we are. So much of our work is about helping our men keep emotions and energy, like, between the lines. Because it's like, once we're in the weeds, guys, like, if you're in bed at midnight and you're scrolling and you start to go down the Instagram rabbit hole or whatever, like, it's really hard to turn back around. It's like, It's almost like it's already done almost. So you've got to, like, not get yourself there in the first place. As you mentioned, Brandon, it's like, it's the battlefield, man. We must be constantly vigilant, and we call it the guardian at the gate. We must always watch, like, what we're going to allow to enter, where we're going to invest our energy, our time, and our attention, man, because every choice really does matter, man. Every choice really does matter.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I've done, you guys, that's helped me out, and I'm sharing this strictly so that it may serve you as well. I do a digital sunset. And I got this from Brian Johnson. I did the Optimized Coach program. So I'm constantly trying to up-level my game, guys, because I want to bring you the very best strategies, tools, philosophies, mindsets, et cetera. And I've always wanted to do that for my clients and for myself, my own benefit, but also so I can share it with you. Brian Johnson talked about the digital sunset, which basically is this. When the sun goes down, your computers go down. Your interfaces go down. Why? Why would that be important? Well, let's think about the first thing. Blue light. Your interfaces are giving you blue light. Now, your body does not know the difference between the blue light in your computer and the sun. I mean, in some ways, maybe, but not fundamentally. Fundamentally, your melatonin is impacted by blue light. When the sun goes down, melatonin starts to increase and you get sleepy. And you naturally go to sleep, get a good night's rest. By the way, melatonin is an absolutely amazing antioxidant, and it detoxifies your brain. So you got to have it, right? You need it to flush out toxins. You need the process of melatonin with everything that it starts with, the glymph and everything. They flush through and clear your brain out. When you get a really good night's rest and you feel well rested, and you actually feel clear the next day, you don't feel foggy, you don't feel like you have those little flutters of fog inside, that is because you got the adequate amount of melatonin and your brain went through a good process where your glymphatic system could flush your brain out, okay? One of the things that impacts it, and you can look this up, is blue light. The blue light from your screens, your TV, your interfaces on your phone, your computers, your iPads, etc., that blue light, even some of our lights today in our homes, that blue light reduces your melatonin. In one study where they used a person falling asleep by reading a book versus them falling asleep by using an iPad over the course of several, whatever the course of the study, and the amount of people, up to 50% reduction in melatonin. 50% reduction. You wonder why you're not getting good rest anymore? It's because you're staying on your computer. It's because you're scrolling on your phone. I can tell you from personal experience that when I started putting my phone and my interfaces down when the sun went down, my life changed. My sleep got better. But more importantly, I started doing things I used to say were luxuries. I don't know how anybody has the time to do that. How do you even do that? I started reading. You want to read more books? Put your phone and your computer down when the sun goes down. I started practicing my instruments. You want to play guitar? You want to learn something? Put your phone and your computer down and start picking up the instrument. You will be surprised with how you'll fill your time. You want to actually connect with your child, your partner deeply? Put your phone and your computer down and you will start connecting. It's literally that simple. These things are getting in the way of you doing these other things you want to do. And so I started doing a digital sunset, and I talk about it all the time. It's so good for you, for every part of your body, for your whole life. It will be such a huge difference maker. And I'll tell you one other thing. Even Cal Newport, which is the author of Deep Work, fantastic book, he talks about having that time where you basically, he calls it shut down complete. What he does, he zeroes out his inbox. He closes all tabs. He closes all windows. And then when he closes his computer, he says the words, shut down complete. That allows him to step away from work, step away from his stuff. And this guy's incredible. He's done and published a number of papers. He's written books. He's awesome, does all this great stuff. Guess how he does all this great stuff that's productive? He doesn't stay on his computer all day. He shuts it down and he literally verbally says, shut down complete. So give it a shot. It's worked. It's worked literally miracles for me. I am such a big fan of it. I preach it all the time. And by the way, in the summer, shutdowns happen later. So you get this later day. And in the winter, yeah, it's pretty early. It'll be like 5 or 6 o'clock and you shut your computer down. But you know what? I've actually come to kind of like the fact that I get more time in the evenings without the computer than in the summer. We're busy all day. And then we don't shut down the interfaces until like 8:30 at night. And then it's a very short window that I have. So I actually have gotten to the point where I actually really like the winter and shutting it down earlier.
Yes. You know what, brother? I love so much of what you shared here today. And I'd love to just say so much of what we're speaking here about today is about living more intentional lives, you know? And it speaks to like my journey in porn. It speaks to our community, porn to purpose, man. If I'm going to say no to porn, what am I saying yes to? You know, it's about getting intentional with the way we want to live our lives. What am I going to do with this energy, my attention, my time, my focus, and what kind of man do I want to be, and what kind of life do I want to live, man? And yeah, it's really about the men that we're committed to being. And I think if there's one thing, I love to offer this to our guys and to our community members, because it's not apparent, right? But, you know, so people are looking for the hack and they want the one thing, right? What is the one thing? Because what I really like to teach and what I believe that we offer is this process called the Freedom Framework. And it's like, what is the key to actually getting porn behind you for good? So it's actually done. It doesn't continue to creep up. Well, that comes through transformation, through real personal change, like becoming a different man. Like I call it the process of conscious evolution, you know? And so for me, it's the one thing that is going to help you stop porn for good is to become the man that is no longer willing to make that choice. That's no longer willing to cross that line. You know, you're living with such a high degree of intention and purpose and integrity in your walk. You have such a high degree of accountability and whatever infrastructure you've created and put in place in your life, such that I'm just not willing to go there anymore. And that I feel is really the final straw. That's the lasting piece.
I'm just not willing to cross that line. I'm not willing to go there anymore.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah. I feel that way with alcohol. That's exactly how I feel. I'm just not willing to go there. That's just not who I am anymore. It's not me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not adding years to my life. It's not adding the qualities that I maybe once, it created a lot of excitement and joy for me at one point in my life, in my early 20s. It was a very blissful type of thing that I got to do. And there were a lot of moments that weren't so good that came along with it. But in this phase of my life, in my mid 30s, no, it just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
This is so good, Matt. Go ahead. Did you want to share something else?
Yeah, I think I just wanted just to cap that off with saying, because I talk to a lot of guys, and the expectation when we talk is like, all right, let's go 12 months from now. What would have to happen for you to be really happy with your progress? And some guys say, you know what, I don't want to have to think about porn anymore. I'd have no more urges. And, I'm completely, but I like to be really real. It's like, guys, no matter what, like living in the world we're living in today, you're still going to see people you find attractive. You're still going to find yourself triggered. You're still going to be on social media. Like the triggers are not going away, and you're going to feel a pull towards them. You know what I mean? That's just the reality of it. So that's why I really like to offer that, is just at some point we just have to draw the line in the sand in terms of the man that we're committed to being, and so I'll just offer that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. It's really, that's really important to make the recognition, or to recognize the fact that it's going to be there. Your triggers are there. Their power over you can get, weakened by your commitment over time, especially because you get far enough away from stuff and you're like, it's kind of easy.
Yep.
Remember, when you first start, everything is kind of hard. It's like you're pushing the boulder up the hill. Mm-hmm. And then at some point that crest, and it seems like it has its own momentum, and you can hang with it. There may be days that it's harder than others where you're pushing again, but there is a certain momentum. For example, like here we are now 10 months for me of being sober from alcohol. I don't feel nearly as tempted as, for example, the very first week I chose to do it. I think it was the first week or the second week. No, it was the first week I chose to do it. I was invited to New Orleans for the national championship game for LSU. And I moved here from Baton Rouge. I'm not from Baton Rouge. My family is, but I moved here from Baton Rouge, and it's a very big party town. LSU is a very big tailgating type of college and school, and Baton Rouge is highly supportive of it. And Louisiana in general is a drinking kind of state. Like drinking is what they do, right? So me going to New Orleans, I decided to quit drinking. I got this invitation that they had another ticket at a box at the Dome in New Orleans for the LSU national championship. I was like, yes, I am 100% in. And then I realized I had this sinking feeling. Oh my gosh, I just quit drinking. Whoa, this is interesting. And I couldn't help but feel like it was apropos. Like it was like it's like a perfect challenge. And here's what I think happens when we decide to step up. It's like we step out of that normal mode of what we're doing. The universe loves to hit us with a challenge. It's like, oh, really? You want to give it a whirl? Let me show you this challenge. And boy, it hit me with a big one. And I had a decision to make. The decision was maybe I quit drinking after New Orleans, which logic would say maybe is the better idea. Yay, we're only a week away. I'll just quit drinking after New Orleans. But something told me inside, no, it'll be 6 months before you actually pick up the energy to stop this again. If you go after New Orleans, you'll have this time in New Orleans. And you know what? Also, you may just get hit with all kinds of problems that you're trying to avoid by quitting drinking. They may happen there as a result of you folding back on yourself. So I said, no, if I can make it in New Orleans, I can make it anywhere. I can make it in Vegas. I can make it in New York City on a New Year's Eve night. I can make it anywhere. I can make it in Mexico on my birthday. If I can make it through New Orleans, if I can make it through the LSU National Championship and not have a drink, I can make it anywhere. So I decided I would do that. And it was awesome. I fully committed, even told the people on the flight over there. I was talking to people next to me. They asked me if I'd like to drink. They were offering one. Everybody was in LSU jerseys. Everybody's flying over to Louisiana. There was nobody on the plane that wasn't going to there to see the game, basically. I mean, and they were like, hey, can I get you a drink? And I'm like, actually, I just quit drinking. They're like, what? Before the game? No way. And I gave them my drink ticket and I ran into those people, randomly ran into them. You know, the first question they had, are you still sober? I said, yes. And they gave me the biggest hug and they celebrated with me. They actually like cheered me and like the guy almost like lifted me up on his shoulders. He was a little buzzed, but they were very excited that I had stayed committed. In fact, so many people that even the people I was with were so excited about my commitment. They were like living vicariously through me succeeding. And that was a very important trip for me. And it was just know when you make this decision, you're going to get hit with the hottest ad you've ever seen. You're going to find yourself in the darkest moment. The whole family is going to leave town and you're going to be at home for a week by yourself. Something's going to happen, my friend, when you decide to quit. And that's the thing you've got to pass through. If you go through it, everything else is easier. Answer the call. When that challenge comes and you made the commitment, answer it. And show up with full force. Use your shield of wisdom and use that sword of truth and penetrate your enemy and win. You can do this. I know you can do it. And I'm here rooting for you. Matt, how can my friends get a hold of you? How can they get involved with what you're doing? My hope is I've inspired and you've inspired, and we've gotten some people today that are ready to make that step from porn to purpose. How do they get involved?
Yes, brother. Thanks so much, Brandon. So a couple things you could do. We are on Facebook. And so we've got a private men's only community on Facebook called Porn to Purpose. Again, it's men only, and only members that are in the group can see the group. I really do my best. Like I look at everybody that comes in there. We want to make sure like it's real people, real profiles, men of integrity. So people can come in there and feel safe, you know, as much as you can on Facebook. So check us out in Porn to Purpose. We got a lot of free training and it gives you that community piece, man. It's such a big piece of the puzzle. We've got challenges going on. You know, we talked about the 7-day porn abstinence challenge. There's all kind of cool resources in there. You can go to porntopurpose.com and download a free copy of the Freedom from Porn Accelerator, which is our guide to help you overcome the urge to use porn. We're offering that for you for free. If you're interested in connecting directly, you can always just shoot me a message straight to makingpeacewithporn@gmail.com.
Making peace with porn. Great, guys. If you do decide to work with Matt, I want you guys to know that Matt has extended a discount to BeDadly. Just let him know you came from BeDadly and you'll get 10% off of his services. I really hope you give this a shot, guys. I mean, remember what we talked about: self-confidence, self-esteem, productivity, focus, business, mastery, money, all these beautiful things, your relationship, all of this things, your spiritual growth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these things can be impacted by this one decision. I hope you'll try it. Give yourself a week. See if you can go. Hey, if you can't, maybe that word there, addict, maybe the label you're not liking. And if you need some support, reach out to Matt. Matt, thank you so much for being with us today. We really, really, really appreciate you guys. If you haven't already, please go ahead and check out Porn to Purpose. And also be sure to like and subscribe this episode and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you, and we love helping you guys out. And we hope you have a beautiful and blessed day. Thanks a lot.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you've received some value from it, please share it with other dads and consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll see you in the next episode. Looking for support with your fatherhood journey? Go to BeDadly.com and take our Dadly Disposition quiz and learn helpful insights on how you can overcome power struggles with your kids.
Hey dads, this is John Profit with BeDadly.com. Just wanted to let you know we have a new sponsor coming on board. That sponsor is Genesee Nutrition. One of our earlier podcast guests, Will Carr, is the founder of that company, and basically they're nutrition bars. They're very, very good tasting nutrition bars, great for taking on the trail or, an impromptu little day trip. You can just throw them in your backpack and be ready to rock. And so as a sponsor, we are offering our listeners a 15% discount. So if you go to GeneseeNutrition.com and make your order, be sure to put in code BeDadly15 and you'll get 15% off of your order. So yeah, if you're a nutrition bar aficionado, go ahead and check them out at GeneseeNutrition.com and make sure to use your coupon code BeDadly15. Thanks for listening.